Welcome back. On Wednesday, the French President Emmanuel Macron is going to kick off a tour of Africa, during which he'll visit Gabon, Angola, the Republic of Congo and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Well, ahead of his departure, the president gave a speech today in which he said that he wouldn't allow France to become Africa's scapegoat, nor, he said, would he allow France to be dragged into what he called an outdated competition for control of the continent. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Many would like to push us into a competition that I believe belongs in the past. This would be falling into a trap set by those who want us to try and show our might. Look, some are coming with their armies and mercenaries. Go and compete with them. I don't believe in this. These are ways of the past, where we show our military might and share exclusive ties with certain leaders and believe that economic markets are just ours because we were there first. We'd fight to play centre stage. I think those times are over.
President Macron speaking there. Well, one of the other points the president made in that speech today, he said there would be a notable fall in the number of French military personnel deployed in Africa. Let's listen in.
Where you have military bases set up, sometimes with hundreds of thousands of French soldiers, there will be a reduction in the number of our soldiers. These bases will not be closed, but transformed. They will become academies and partnership bases, and will change in appearance, logic, and imprint.
The President of France, Emmanuel Macron, speaking there. Well, let's get some more analysis now from Andrew Lebovich, who is Research Fellow at the Clingendael's Conflict Research Unit. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us again here on France 24. President Macron said earlier on today he won't let France become Africa's scapegoat. What do you understand that as meaning exactly?
Well, certainly, President Macron is expressing his own frustration at the what French officials and others in the media have often described as a rising anti-French sentiment, and particularly the ways in which some officials in the Sahel, such as Mali's transitional prime minister, have, in fairly clear terms, though not explicitly, said that France was responsible for insecurity in the region, or that France have alleged that France was instigating or supporting terrorist groups or jihadist groups in the region. So it's a quite clear statement, really pushing back against that, both in government and in civil society, and the protests that have happened over the last several years, in particular, against France's presence in the Sahel.
Yeah, and he also said that he's not going to be drawn into an outdated competition for control in Africa. What was he referring to there, do you think?
Well, he's referring really to the increased emphasis in recent years on geopolitical competition in Africa, particularly the ways in which Russia and the return of Russia to Africa and the presence of Russian advisors, but also mercenaries from the Wagner Group, have been are present or believed to be present as a reaction to France and to, as some allege, to push France out of the region, and this is often presented in very stark terms. Now, at the same time, later in his remarks, President Macron also did quite clearly say that there was geopolitical competition and that there was a series of competitions underway in Africa at the moment. So he also wanted to have it a bit both ways in his remarks.
So is he basically saying that France won't bother to try to counter Chinese and Russian influence on the continent? Does that sound likely to you?
No, I don't think he was saying that France won't compete. I think he was trying to say that he was frustrated or did not want France's presence or anything in the future to be presented as part of this geopolitical competition. But I don't think anyone feels that France is simply going to do nothing, or that France and its partners will simply do nothing to secure their own position, their own geopolitical position, or perhaps counter something like the presence of the Wagner Group that they've clearly described in many cases as nefarious, and that even in his remarks he described as a mercenary criminal organization. We're not sure what form that's going to take, of course, but no, I don't think it means that France is not going to compete at all.
Some of the analysts we've spoken to this evening who listened to the president's speech in its entirety, said that the tone was a bit different from previous speeches made to targeting an African audience. They said it sounded more humble, that it sounded different in that sense. Was that something that struck you at all, the tone of the speech?
No, I wouldn't necessarily say that it was more humble than past remarks that President Macron has given. Certainly, the context is different. As the first question, the first questioner pointed out during the speech, he gave the speech in Paris rather than in Ouagadougou, rather than somewhere else in Africa. So certainly, France has been publicly chastened by the military withdrawal from Mali and most recently from Burkina Faso. But I don't think the speech itself was as different in tone or as different in content, really, as some might have expected, particularly on the question of basing, but not just on that question.
Okay, so President Macron visiting 4 countries on this Central African tour. What sort of a welcome do you think he's going to get?
Well, I don't think he's going to get an unfriendly welcome. Certainly, he's chosen at least some countries, Gabon being the clearest example, where France has a long-standing relationship and a very close relationship, even though that's changed a bit in recent years. So certainly, I think we can expect a positive public greeting from President Macron in these destinations, though we'll have to see what the reception is, particularly afterwards.
Okay, Andrew Lebovich, Research Fellow with Clingendael's Conflict Research Unit. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us.